Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie, and have you used a CGM before? CGM is continuous glucose monitor, and there's different options out there. Ideally, you can get it from your doctor, but they seem to just want to wait until you're type 2 diabetic and not be preventative. I would like us to take ownership of our health and make choices now to prevent having high, low glucose readings and optimize your health from the inside out by testing and not guessing. And that includes a CGM that goes on for 14 days, and you can order one via NutriSense. And a CGM is giving you glucose updates with a small device in the back of your arm 24/7. Totally easy. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete, how to apply this CGM. First time, kind of scared, but it doesn't hurt. But it gives you real-time glucose readings. Glucose response to meals. You'll learn about what foods are reactive to you, and that could be a healthy food that you think is great, but it could raise your glucose. Simple things as stevia, for me, raise my glucose. Chewing gum, raise my glucose. Stress, when I'm driving a car and there's traffic, raises my glucose. Every stress response is a glucose response. So learn how to manage your stress. Learn how to pick right foods for you, unless you can, do other lab testing and figure out vibrant wellness food zoomers, but it's kind of expensive for people. So if you can wear a CGM, it's a great way to learn about stress, food, exercise, stacking movement with your nutrition. Figure out how to balance your blood sugar. So we want to learn more about how to exercise and eat or not eat. And morning cortisol, does it raise your glucose? If there's hidden stressors at nighttime, does your glucose go up higher while you're sleeping? So it gives us lots of clues that we can put in our investigation when we are working on your personalized fueling, training, and performance program to improve fat loss, performance, and longevity. So head to NutriSense website, nutrisense.io, how it works. You can learn more about your habits, your routines, your relationship to food, a little bit more. Great app to use, and it can sync on to different programs. So you can put it all together. So if you want to get started with your journey in NutriSense, I suggest this to all my clients. Use at least 30 days. So you can do a 30-day, 90-day, different programs, but you can pick which one you want. You get the sensor in the mail, put it on, lasts for 14 days, sync it to the app, and get your readings on there. And then if you're doing my VIP coaching program, I'm working with you to correlate this data together. So begin your health optimization journey with NutriSense, and you can save on your order with our code, as usual, Low Carb Athlete. So no carbs is not our goal, it's carb timing, and using NutriSense, you can help figure out your nutrient-dense whole food plan and when to adjust your macros based on your exercise intensity, duration, based on your life stressors, and learn more. So it's nice to have this data. So test and not guess with NutriSense. Let me know how you like it. Are you confused on what to eat and when to eat? There's so much information out there in our community. Keto, carnivore, ketovore, paleo, ancestral health, the proper human diet. Being metabolically healthy is confusing because a lot of the information out there is for the individual who is struggling with metabolic health issues. But what if you are an endurance athlete, a fit and active individual? Should you be strict carnivore? Should you be strict keto, 50 grams or under grams of carbs per day? What works best for you is so individual. And I'm here to take all this information, bring it to you, and then let's talk about it. If you are a fit and active aging athlete who is working out maybe more than one time a day, as I just did master swimming at lunchtime and I lifted weights this morning and I'm going for a walk tonight. It's my active recovery day. So it's my easy day. And then I'll do hard hill intervals tomorrow morning and maybe an easy swim and lifting weights. So what is good for you? It depends. So let's talk to my friend, Coach Bronson, who focuses on more ketovore, carnivore food plan for those that are lifting weights and getting stronger and getting healthier as they age, and really loves, and he's very good at this, motivating people. So let's talk to Bronson. Before I bring Bronson back on the show, I will give you a little background on him. Coach Bronson has been guiding and training people in health and fitness for over 10 years. He started CrossFit around his 40th birthday, and he just turned 50 last year. I know I was with him on the low carb cruise around his 50th birthday. So he's around the same age as myself. But he quickly fell in love with the variety, the community, coaching, and the results he got from CrossFit. It didn't take long for him to realize that learning more about fitness and becoming a coach was his next path in life. And that is what brought him to going through this journey. He opened CrossFit Gym in 2014 and was a gym owner as myself, which is part of my chronic stress. It's a lot of work. He helped people improve their health and fitness and developed what he calls F2 method to improve the client's quality of life, physical freedom, consistently and sustainably. In 2018, Bronson discovered how an animal-based nutrition lifestyle optimizes metabolic health and performance. Since then, Bronson's designed specific methods to use both nutrition and fitness radically to improve the lives of people all over the world. He wrote a book that we talked about on our last conversation together on my podcast last year. His book's called The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. It's a complete guide to optimizing keto for a better quality of life. And he offers coaching programs, one-on-one consultation, and runs a very successful life transformation bootcamp for people of all walks of life. And we have been on the low carb cruise the last 2 years together. He and his girlfriend, Natalie, she's been on my show twice now, and they put on their first conference this past summer. And I know they are doing it again next year. So they are motivated. I don't know where they get all the energy. I got myself burned out and broken from owning my fitness studio for 10 years. Trying to do everything is very overwhelming. And that's where I kind of lack in my drive these days to keep up with everyone on social media and podcast and YouTube. I just kind of do what I love to do and hope I can help other people along the way. But Bronson and Natalie are just on fire with their social media, their online coaching programs, and doing everything they're doing to make an impact. So I admire their energy. So let's bring on Bronson. I wanted to have him come back on the show today to talk about carnivore and getting stronger as I continue this season on the podcast to talk about how we can improve the aging process. And a lot of that is prioritizing proteins. Protein, ancestral health is protein and fat together naturally, and prioritizing lifting weights, building that foundation up and lifting heavy weights. As I have been talking about for the female athlete specifically, a lot of the research shared by Dr. Stacy Sims that has finished her course on the Menopause 2.0 program she offers. And I think it's really important for us endurance athletes to hear the importance of being in an anabolic building state, because catabolic, breaking down our muscles, is what we do as endurance athlete, training too much volume, training or racing too much, that we really need to do kind of what I would say less is more as we age to improve our strength gains and our hormonal health and our blood sugar and everything else, because chronic stress impacts everything, as I've said. So let's bring on Bronson, and you can listen to me another day. But be sure to check out our YouTube channel, because I put all the video recordings on my YouTube channel right after I have the interview. So we talked a couple months ago, but you guys are just getting the audio version now. So subscribe to the audio as well as YouTube channel. All right, let's bring on Bronson, and I'll stop talking. I forgot to add, check out the Low Carb Athlete Coach is my channel on YouTube. And the video I did with Bronson is called Is Keto Carnivore for You with Coach Bronson and Debbie Potts. So go back and watch our video if you want to see us have a conversation. And you can add comments on the YouTube channel and we will respond, as we had a couple comments about the podcast and overtraining and nutrition. So we'll talk more to Bronson next time. Just send in your questions. All right, let's go back to Coach Bronson and Debbie Potts. All right, everybody. I've got my friend Coach Bronson back on the show. We just got off the cruise. Is that your cruise ship?
Is that right? Did you limbo? Did you do limbo while you were on the cruise?
When was that? I go to bed too early.
You can't.
I missed all the evening entertainment.
The evening entertainment? Yeah, there's always limbo on a cruise somewhere.
Yeah, that seems very cruise ship-ish, or like you watched too much Love Boat growing up as a kid. Love Boat, they probably had that on. So we were on the cruise, low carb cruise again, and I always love that week because it's just connecting with people like-minded and listen to different stories and adventures. And I think it's funny being in this industry so long as an athlete, a coach, and into nutrition, that everyone was talking about eat more protein instead of eat more fat, eat more fat. So now we went from keto to carnivore and more of I love what Dr. Ken Berry says. Ken talks about the proper human diet. And that's what I like to say. How should you eat real food that balances your blood sugar, nutrient dense foods, and anti-inflammatory. And when you take out what's left, I would say it ends up just being meat. But yeah, I want to talk to you about that a little more today. It's why should we be more, when should we be more strict carnivore? Is it just a reset? Is it appropriate for people that in my audience are endurance athletes? They're doing long training, they're racing, because I get a lot of people listening to all this information, but we're not the people that might be in our conference that have more metabolic issues. So when is it appropriate to be carnivore or keto carnivore or proper human diet, or what do we say? So let's just dive into why you choose to eat more of an animal-based diet. Are you strict carnivore or not? Or what's your why and your purpose?
I don't know if I'm strict carnivore because I don't know where the rule book for carnivore is.
Let's go back to caveman days, and they wrote it on a wall.
Did they
somewhere.
write something down?
It's hammered into.
I don't know what that
cave.
means. This is part of the issue and the confusion a lot of people have with all these dietary protocols, if you want to even call them. It's more like dietary social media, whims. Somebody said something, so that must be the way it is. None of it's written down, and it's what's working for that person who's talking about it, but that may not work for you. So my guiding principle for all of this stuff is do what works for you and something that you can sustain. That's it. If you can't keep it up, then why are you doing it? If it's not working, then why are you doing it?
My words here I have written down. Why, the purpose, and sustainable. You just said all that.
Right? That's really what it's all about. So I like how you brought at the beginning that, a lot of the people that do go to these events, conferences they're at a place where they're still in the healing process. They are not metabolically sound. They are not athletic. They are not active. And a lot of people that you talk to, and I'm trying to get more people to that place. My goal as a fitness guy in this space is you got to start moving your body and getting people to realize that it's not just nutrition. Physical activity is part of the equation.
Yeah.
So I'm still, even for my audience, most of my audience is not at that space, at that place yet. But there are differences in how things work based on your metabolic condition, right? I tell people all the time, don't look at what I'm doing as someone who's been healed for over 5 years, who is physically active, has zero metabolic issues, and can do anything that I want to do physically because I have no physical limitations. Don't look at what I'm doing and then try to copy me.
Yeah.
Because it's not
Exactly.
going to work for you. You're going to run into a wall. You're going to get frustrated and be like, why is nothing working? It's because we're different people. We're different places. So that being said, and this is really where I'd like the focus of this conversation to be, is for everyone to understand that the principles of how our bodies work don't change.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies function the same.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing, what our preferences are, what our goals are, the things that we have in our daily lives that we're dealing with, the overall stress that we have, that we're putting on ourselves, that life is putting on. Like, there's a million things in the list of variables that impact what's going to work for somebody and what's not going to work for somebody. And understanding how those things are impacted by the principles that don't change. The principles of nutrition, what we need for optimal nutrition, don't change. The principles for fitness and what we need for optimal fitness don't change, right? Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, said it the best. And I'm going to totally botch this quote, but the demands change in degree, not kind. The things that we have to do and the things that every individual's life experience is requiring of them are different in the level and the impact and the intensity and the complexity of what is going on in their lives. The function and the principles and the concepts used to make all that stuff happen don't change. So that's one thing I really want people to understand, right? So when we talk about nutrition, my three, and this is what I've come up with. This may not be what anyone else has come up with, but these are my three tenets for nutrition: nutrient density, bioavailability, and satiety.
Yes, for sure.
Those are the key. Like, if you focus on those three things, 99% of the time, you're going to make a better decision than not, regardless of what nutrition protocol or method you're following.
Yes.
Right? So if you apply, let's say we apply my preference. I can't stand just eating meat all the time. I've got to have some veggies. Okay, great. That is something that is in your experience. You want to have some veggies, go have some veggies. What choices you make based on those three things? What veggie do you want to have? And if it's between a mix between white rice or corn and asparagus or Brussels sprouts, right? Which one is going to give you the most nutrient density, the most bioavailability, and the most satiety? And maybe it's how you prepare it. Maybe, like, there's, again, the variables come into what you're doing, not how it works when you do it. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I want people to understand.
But I think that's important, because that's what I always talk to my clients about. Like, focus on what foods make you feel good, energized, and feel full for hours. And for me, I tried explaining this in a video the other day, that I choose not to eat a lot of carbohydrates because they do not make me feel full. I choose to not do wheat and gluten because I got my Vibrant Wellness test and I was off the charts, like literally, for inflammation from anything with wheat. So I know I have to avoid that. But I know from my previous years in college, if I have bread, talk about, listening to all these food addicts last week, carb addicts, I was like, oh my God, that's me. If I have bread, if I didn't have that food sensitivity reaction, I can eat a whole basket of bread and not feel full. I can eat a dozen bagels. I used to live off bagels in college. That's all, it was healthy because it was fat free. And back in my days in college, 89 to 94, whatever I was in college, that's what, we ate fat free, everything. I ate all carbs. And so I think I'm carb insensitive. My genetics show that as well. I'm more intolerant. So for my unique self, my genetics, my previous life, I do not do well with carbohydrates. And vegetables I can do, but I do not feel full if I have a big salad. And for years before I got into the keto and now more carnivore, eating more animal-based diet, I could eat a big, huge bowl of salad every day because that was healthy back then. We thought we're doing the right thing. I was always looked at as a healthy eater. Debbie, oh my gosh, she's such a good eater. She doesn't eat this or that. Well, I was always hungry. So unless I eat like, a ton of chicken or now steak and seafood and stuff. So anyways, I think it is unique to that individual, but it is stop and think, how does that food make me feel? Does it make me binge and overeat, or does it give me energy, or does it make me feel bloated and gassy and all those side effects?
Yeah. And it's not even just how does it make you feel? Is it having an effect on your health?
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about athletes, is it having an effect on your performance? Is it having an effect on your recovery? Is it having an effect on your mental clarity and mental performance? Like there's so many things that the choices we make, and this is from a fitness perspective as well, when it comes to overtraining, making the choices of what you're going to do for a given workout, what programs you're following, things like that. So both of these things, and I think that's where we get into a mindset shift that I like to work with my clients and I like to talk about with people is if we can get away from the subjective, how do I feel, and start thinking and start looking at this like finances or a business or an investment, and start looking at this as a net gain or net loss.
Yeah.
And the questions that I'm going to ask myself are, if I make this choice, is it going to move me forward or is it going to move me
backwards? Yeah.
And take the emotion, I know it's easier than it sounds, or it's harder than it sounds sometimes, but if you can start getting your mindset into, and this is what I did for alcohol for me. Once I learned and really got into, because I went through a process of many years ago, I did a 3-week alcohol detox, 3 weeks, 21 days. I lost 10 pounds of fat in 3 weeks.
Wow.
No muscle loss, slept better, felt amazing. 3 pounds of fat or 10 pounds of fat in 3 weeks just by stop. And it wasn't even a lot. It was like 3 glasses of whiskey a week. Like it wasn't even like I was drinking every night, drinking beer or anything like that. It was literally whiskey on the rocks 3 nights a week. So that got me into like, what the hell is alcohol doing and what's up with all this? So I really dug into alcohol, and the more I learned about alcohol and what it did to the body and how it affected the metabolism and oxidative priority and acetaldehydes and just all of the things, I was like, this is an obvious net zero, net negative. If I do this, this is done. Like I am done with alcohol and never happening again. And I haven't had, I made maybe one drink of alcohol in 5-6 years. And it wasn't even hard for me to stop. It was such an obvious, this cannot touch my body, because of that net loss, net gain philosophy mindset, that it just made that process so much easier. So for anybody that's like, I don't know if I can make the changes, what decision should I make? Find out. Look at those criteria: nutrient density, bioavailability, satiety. Is it a net gain or a net loss, the choice that you're about to make?
And then you tie that in, as we're saying, excuse me, performance gains. If I'm trying to help people fuel, train, and perform for just daily life, but also if people are doing events and races this year. And of course, the big goal everyone should be looking for is their future self, how we're going to be forming in life 20, 30 years from now. Yes. And I think it's so important to look at, you can't out exercise a poor diet, and you can't out supplement poor nutrition and lifestyle habits. And I really try to teach people that when I'm coaching them individually with the holistic method elements, that it's so important. But for performance, the nutrition part's so confusing, is the main point of this show, is because people will listen to Dr. Mindy Pelz, to Dr. Kim Berry, to, all these different people out there.
None of them are athletes or have any idea how athletes need to do anything.
Exactly.
I love them all.
That's why I keep trying to sort it out.
But we have to, this is the number one thing to understand, is you have to apply context. Okay. And it's not just context to the information, it's context to the person giving the information, and it's context to you. There's 3 parts to all context. Okay. It's communication. It's communication, right? It's the sender, it's the message, it's the receiver. And if we can understand that, then we can look at the sender. Where are they coming from? If you're listening to a doctor who's got medical clinical practice experience, they're not talking to you as an athlete. I can tell you that right now. They're not. They're talking to people who are medically unhealthy and they're trying to save people's lives. That's who they're talking to. The advice that they're giving you, you can evaluate that information for the principles that they're following, and you can extrapolate those principles and see how those principles apply to your situation. But the tactics, the strategies, and the methodologies that they're using probably don't really apply to you if you are metabolically healthy, physically active, and a competitive athlete.
Yeah.
Because they're not talking to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's my point.
So just, you need to understand, everyone needs to understand that. Now, if you're the only doctor I would say that's a medical clinical doctor would be Dr. Nally. Because he might be the doc. I mean, he's Doc Muscles. Like, come on, like, you know.
Yeah, he's been on the show.
Who's not a researcher kind of doctor, right? Maybe Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, but I don't know if she has an athletic background. I don't know her full story. I know she's all into muscle and that kind of stuff, but there's very few people that have medical experience that are in that space. So if you're looking for athletes, if you're an athlete and you're looking for information on how to be able to perform best as an athlete following a ketogenic or carnivore diet, then you should be talking to people who have experience working with athletes following a ketogenic or carnivore diet.
Yeah. That's
pretty much it. And the people that, from a scientific perspective, I think everybody knows on the top of the list, we got Finney, Volek, and Noakes at the top of the chain, right? From a scientific perspective. Dr. Sivas has worked with Dr. Noakes a lot. He's got a lot of information. I've had a lot of conversations with Dr. Sivas. I've had a lot of conversations with Bart Kay. I've had a lot of conversations with Dave Feldman. There's a lot of people that I've talked with, trying to understand more of the science of the stuff. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. So everything that I have in my head is stuff that I've pulled from other people. Yeah. And experimenting with the people that I work in with myself. So I can tell you for a fact a whole bunch of things about what I've seen in real life about what works. And probably 85-90% of it I can explain with something scientific. Right? Because that's not what I do. But I have dug and tried to figure out, okay, what's the mechanism behind this? Why do I see this happening in this person but not in that person? And different things like that. So for sure.
But that's a lot of the studies. You look at who are they done on, and that's my issue is like, all right, okay, let's look at this. Even the faster study is one endurance sport research study that was done on ketogenic athletes doing endurance work. And it was all men and not women because they're difficult to study. So I think it's always looking at who. And that's why I'm always more.
Women are difficult to study. What are you talking about?
Well, unless they're postmenopausal, then they're kind of more equal. But before that, we're a mess with hormone cycling. But I think it's so interesting to read the studies, but it's such an N=1 experiment. And that's why I say it isn't one size fits all. Let's take all this information and experiment and course correct. That's why we are coaches, so people can work with us and we observe and learn and let's try this and try that. That didn't work and move on. But it's an ongoing journey. And it isn't everyone should do strict carnivore is what we're getting to. And that should they do, zero carb, all carbs evil and where to time them is what we've been talking about. Like, okay, post workout, or do you need them when your zone 2 is more fat burning versus you're doing anaerobic workout? So you're more strength training, kind of heavy lifting, CrossFit-ish type workout, right?
Yeah, I work with everybody. I work with runners. I work with triathletes. I work with CrossFitters. I work with powerlifters, Olympic lifters. Like I've done a little bit of all of it. And everybody I've worked with since I've been doing this for about 5 years on the carnivore keto side, everybody that I've worked with across the board has seen improvements the less carbs they eat. So, I mean, I
even
can't
speed work, like sprint workouts.
Everything, 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the things that I've learned as I've gone through this process, and again, digging and trying to understand this whole metabolism, metabolic function thing, right? One of the things I learned in the last year, which was different than everything I'd ever been trained in all of my certifications and training, was that every muscle contraction requires glycogen. Now we know, right? Okay, on the surface, we understand that, right? Muscles use glycogen. Great. But the idea of glycogen depletion is confounded in many ways, in that if we actually depleted the glycogen in our muscles, we would die. So the idea of glycogen depletion doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, because our body is smart.
Because our body we'd be in rigor mortis, essentially. No muscles would contract, and our heart would stop, our diaphragm would stop working, our blood would stop pumping, our intestinal tract would stop working, or we would die. Like, we actually ran out of glycogen. So the idea that we have to replenish glycogen after a workout doesn't make sense in that context. Well, if we're not actually ever running out of glycogen for our muscles to use, then what am I replenishing? And starting to put some of these pieces together, I kind of came up with an analogy. I don't know if you've heard me talk before. I'm big on analogies. I try to draw pictures for people so we can understand this. And I came up with the pool and the hose, right? So essentially what our body is doing is we've got to store glycogen. We've got to store fat. And our body uses that glycogen for muscle contraction. But at the same time, especially if we're ketogenic, if we're fat adapted, our body is using that second reservoir, and let's call it the big pool. We got the baby pool and the big pool, right? The baby pool is the glycogen and the big pool is the fat. We're pulling from that big pool through a secondary hose that is then refeeding into that glycogen pool, into that baby pool. So what people don't understand, and I have this conversation on a regular basis, is that gluconeogenesis, a lot of people think gluconeogenesis is, the body turning protein into glycogen, and it is, but it's also utilizing the substrates as a byproduct of ketogenesis to turn them into glycogen. Mm-hmm. So pyruvate, acetate, lactate, those things can go into the process of creating glycogen for the body. So our body is always, all of the time, replenishing glycogen stores from fat. And if you do look at the work of Dr. Finney, I think in the 80s, he showed that there's up to and potentially more, just the one study that I think from 1980 he did showed a 50% increase in fat oxidation after 8 weeks of fat adaptation. So we know that if you're fat adapted, your body's going to use more fat to replenish that glycogen because it has to get it from there. So that cycle actually works. So the need to ingest sugar or the need to ingest carbs in order to produce glycogen, I think the more fat adapted you are, the less that need goes down.
Yes.
That's just been my experience.
No, yeah. We've talked about that for 10 years on here. That's kind of what I try to explain to people, that they don't need as much when you're fat adapted. And now that I bought my new fitness testing equipment, I test people's metabolism, which I used to do 10 years ago at rest and during exercise. So you can really see and then retest people to say, okay, are you training your body burn fat at rest? And I need some people, because I was just demoing on people that I know last month, but I need some people that don't follow this food plan. So I need a normal person to test. I'm like, you're all good at burning fat. Person. I want to see someone that's messed up. So I think it is teaching people that you don't need to depend on carbs, and that you can, and timing it. And that's where I think it's, what we eat. So going into exercise, if you wake up and work out, the whole conversation is, do you eat or not eat before a workout? And if it's when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to have coffee and water and my sea salt in my water. Do I have the dinner night before? So it's kind of that I look at people's nutrient timing, because a lot of times I don't eat dinner late at night, especially school nights. I'll eat, be done eating at 3:00. So it is kind of looking at that individual schedule. Should you eat some calories or not eat? I was like, okay, are you hungry? Then
and how do you perform?
And how's your performance? Exactly.
Yeah, if talking to athletes, honestly, we're going to change. We're going to make sure. I'm so used to talking to non-athletes, so we're going to talk to athletes. If you're an athlete and your question is, should I eat before? Should I work out fasted or not?
Yes.
Do you perform better fasted or not?
Exactly. My question. So it's like, how's your performance?
That's the determining factor.
If you suck air and you're dragging, and then maybe you should adjust something. But if you feel great, you're good.
You feel great. And then the other, and to take that even a step further, it's not even just the workout. How do you feel after the workout?
Yeah.
Because you could eat before you work out and then feel great during the workout. And then right after the workout, you're done. You're sitting around and you're like, oh, this does not feel good. You know what I mean? It's because you got this food that you ate but hasn't digested because you've been working, and now it's sitting like a brick in your stomach. Mm-hmm. So you got to look at the whole experience.
Yeah.
And what is working best for you.
Yeah,
I will say though, no matter what you're doing, you got to get those electrolytes in before you work out.
I know, which I'm
A
doing
lot more.
a podcast with Redmond's Real Salt in
Okay,
September.
awesome.
I told him we were all talking about him on the cruise, and everyone's handing around their
They're
Redmond Real
sponsoring
Salt.
our conference. They're gonna be at our conference.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love their salt, but I think it is so scary for people to think. That's why I want him on the show. Like, oh, I can't do sodium. Yeah. Sodium is bad for me. Like, what? No.
It's so good for you.
I know. So that's why I think it is looking at when you're working out, what type of workout it is, duration and intensity, time of day. Do you need to eat, or maybe just some liquid calories in your coffee, or just electrolytes and water, but also looking at when did you stop eating the night before? Because a lot of times, as I said, I haven't eaten for a long time. And so my struggle is always eating enough. I'm finding it's hard to get busy when you have a big meal at 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm kind of full for the rest of the day. So what do you find works for you and for
me,
for your body?
I like to, so right now, I'm trying to get more food in, but my schedule is making it difficult. So right now I do about 24 ounces of ground beef at 11:30, 12 o'clock during the day. And then I get home, I go to the gym around 5 o'clock, and then I eat when I get back around 6:30. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. So I usually eat a good meal. Like today I came home from the gym and I had, cause I was getting on this call, I didn't get to make all that I normally would make, but I got 12 eggs together for dinner tonight. So that was my dinner for tonight.
You need to move somewhere you have
some butter.
like 100 chickens in the back so you could just have eggs.
I do. I really do. I eat
eggs.
so many eggs. So many eggs. I love them.
So I think that's a good example, because if you work out later in the day, it's easier to time it to work. Do you allow 2 hours before a workout to when to eat? Or 3 hours?
I mean, I've worked out, I've eaten, and then went right to the gym. It just kind of depends on how I feel. And, for me, so maybe I'm different, but I feel like probably not. I feel like a lot of athletes are like, if it's time to work out, it's time to work out. I'm going to eat and then I'm going to work out, like whatever. When it's time for me to work out, if I've only got the time right before I go work out, that's when I need to get my food in. Otherwise, it's going to be another 4 hours before I eat again. Then I'm going to eat and then I'm going to go work out. So it's just, for me, it's just kind of, it is what it is. I'm very pragmatic about my approach when it comes to food and that kind of thing. So
you focus on the protein. You enjoy, finish your sentence.
No, I was gonna say, I enjoy every bite that I ever eat. So I'm not avoiding it at all.
Good. That's important. And that you eat slowly and mindfully. You're not inhaling it.
Oh, I do that too. Trust me.
Chew your food.
I try to enjoy it, but
Yeah. See, that's the thing, we get rushing. So protein, do you do like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, kind of the Lion protocol?
Right now I'm at a little over that. I start people off at 1-to-1 for lean mass. Mm-hmm. So right now for my lean mass, I'm about 1.5. So I'm doing about 220, 230.
And then do you adjust the fat macros with that to balance that out? Or you?
Yeah, so my fat macros are about 165 right now. That's kind of a maintenance, a little below maintenance for me. Maintenance for me is about 175 on the fat side. And then
do you count? I mean, I hate counting calories.
I measure my macros when I'm in the process of making adjustments and changing and trying to figure out where I want to be and what I'm trying to do. Then I measure for a period of time till I have a good idea. I pretty much eat the same thing. So once I spend a week and figure out, okay, what are the combinations of food that get me the macros I'm looking for? Mm-hmm. Then I stop tracking. I just do that for a while, get where I want to go. And then if I need to make some changes, I'll track again, kind of see where I'm at. But, I go through phases back and forth of tracking and not tracking. My philosophy is, if you're not tracking, you're not trying. And if you can't make a change, if you don't know what you're changing.
Yeah.
So if you're happy where you are, then you don't need to track. If you're not happy where you are and you want to change something, you better start tracking.
Track. I know it's hard to do, but you have to see how much you're getting in. Because a lot of times I have clients doing the chronometer and they're just like always under 100 grams of protein a day. It's so hard for people to get, especially females, to think, okay, I can have that big, huge steak and that's not a pigging out.
Go get it. Yeah.
4 eggs is okay. So the protein and fat, and then carbs for you. And do you say everyone that you're working with athletes? Depends on the person if they should put any in there, or you just focusing on the protein and fat?
Or protein and fat is usually the focus. And the wording is very specific there, right? Should versus want to or could. So should is a no, right? If you want to, that's great. We can work it into a plan. Let's see how it affects your performance. If you could, like, you could do this. Do you want to do this? Like, so all of those things kind of come into play. I don't think should is ever a valid, is it an adjective? Adverb? What is that? What is that in the?
Oh my gosh! Don't ask me.
I don't think should is a word, is a qualitative word that we need to use in the conversation. You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
So if someone wants to have carbs, then great, have carbs. Do you need to have carbs? No.
Yeah.
The only case that I've seen, and that I've not seen I personally, but heard of, where someone might need carbs is ultra runners, right? They are marathon, 26.2 miles. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that fat adapted. If you need to, bring some ketone gels with you, something like that, and you should be fine. Like you don't need carbs for a marathon. If you're running 100 miles, that's a whole nother level that I don't know, outside of Zach Bitter, and I don't know if he's done data on his metabolism and blood and VO2 while he's doing that kind of a thing, right? I can't imagine anybody wanting to be hooked up to stuff while they're running 100 miles. You know what I mean? So maybe blood work before, blood work after, to kind of see some kind of benchmark. I'm not sure how. I don't know what data he's got on what he's doing.
I'll have to ask.
Yeah. So I think that'd be very interesting to find out. But outside of the extreme on that end, I have not seen anybody that hasn't had an improvement in their performance, whether it's strength training, high intensity interval training, or endurance training, by not including carbs and making sure they're getting adequate protein and adequate fat.
Now, if you're not doing organ meat, do you feel that people are getting deficient in nutrients?
Electrolytes are more important
than eating liver?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's what I've been just listening to my body, what I feel like and what makes me feel better. And I'm not trying to be carnivore. It's just what ends up happening.
So I'm glad you said that, because here's the thing. Everybody feels better the more carnivore they go across the board. The problem is people don't want to do that. In their head, they've got this resistance of, I don't want to just eat meat. I want this. I want that. I want this. And that's perfectly fine. But at some point, each individual has to come to that crossroads of, I really don't want to do this, but I feel nothing amazing when I do it. So now I have a choice to make. Which way do I want to go? And that's kind of where we end up. That's where I was. I started carnivore as an elimination diet to heal my IBS. And I was also very frustrated. I thought just the possibility from a performance perspective of being able to get stronger and build lean mass without getting fat was just the idea that could potentially be a thing, and without being overly complicated and super strict and counting just the idea of the things I had to go through to get there, but in the past, and to maintain it was just a pain in the ass. You get weak to get lean, you get fat to get strong. There's that back and forth of cutting and bulking and all these other, it just was so annoying. So the fact that over the past 5 years, I've been able to maintain between 11 and 12% body fat, gain muscle the entire time at 51 years old. And it's easy for me. Don't think about what I'm doing, right? Has been like just life-changing in my approach to fitness and the things that I can do. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but most people, the more carnivore they go, the better everything starts happening.
And I think that goes back to what you said, the could, would, should, and that give yourself permission. If I want to have something that's not ideal, is it going to, like we were talking on the cruise, is that going to set you off into a binge and throw you off in the downhill? Or can you just have that, say, fajitas with nachos or something, and be okay. Like, okay, I had that.
And then you're not going to do that. You're going to do it, right? You're not going to do it once and then, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Then, I'm going to do it tomorrow, right? Yeah. So that's another aspect of, once you get to where you're healthy and you're living the life you want to live, and you start living in that net gain, net loss mindset, then you don't want to lose what you have.
Yeah.
So when you do have, so I mean, I'll have, let's see, we were on the cruise. I had some cheesecake, some of that sugar, low carb, no gluten cheesecake that I had. I had a whole plate. It was great. Done. That was great. That was it. That was my treat for the
Yeah.
cruise.
So you didn't
Right.
go
It's not
off
like I'm longing, like, oh my God, I need more cheesecake. You know what I mean? Like,
you didn't go the
that
next
was it. I
day and get
enjoyed
10
it.
desserts.
Right. I enjoyed it. Okay, that was cool. Great.
Yeah.
Fun. That was it. Nice. Because number one, I'm at a place where I don't want to lose what I have, so I'm not going to repeat that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I understand what it's doing to my body, so I'm not making an excuse or trying to make up for a bad decision. I made the decision, I accepted the decision, and I went about my life.
Yeah.
Right.
So your
And then
relationship with food.
yeah. And then thirdly, I'm healthy now. I'm not working from a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you're working from a deficit, if we go back to that net gain, net loss mindset, and we're talking about investments and finances, most people that I work with are in severe debt, severe health debt. So when you're in severe health debt, you cannot afford to go buy that TV. You can't afford to go on that trip. You can't afford to go to the movies. You got to sit your butt at home, read a book, and don't spend any money. That's what you got to do.
That's what I'm doing right now because I bought the Pinoy metabolic testing. So I bought equipment that to follow my purpose and passion, not because I'm other debt of food. So going into the exercise part of it, as I talk about fat loss, performance, and longevity, I'm working with endurance athletes that listen to, like previous Debbie that did multiple Ironmans, marathons,
Stop
50K
running so
trail
much.
runs. Yeah, exactly. I was listening to podcasts and it was even 20 minutes cardio, zone 2 is all you need. And then sprints and lifting weights. And it's so hard to get people to, I think because we love, like I still train for triathlons, but I haven't raced since 2015. I still swim and I bike and I run and I love it. It's my time in nature. It's where my brain turns on when I'm on my bike and I enjoy it. I know it's not great for me. I don't go the ultra long stuff I used to. Even when I stopped racing, I would still go, I want 5-7 hour bike rides. So to get people to switch their mindset that, okay, you're not racing anymore. Maybe it's time for you to stop racing and retire and give it up and work on longevity, which would be, short workouts, some sprints, and then more work on, I think, strength training. So what do you find works great for people, improve the aging process? So you train your future self.
I think from a runner's perspective, let's talk to all you runners out there. One of the biggest things that I've seen in runners when they're realizing they need to make that change, I probably shouldn't be being as competitive. And just so all you runners feel good, okay, feel better about yourselves. This is the same conversation that I've had with CrossFit athletes. It's the same conversation I've had with powerlifters, Olympic lifters, with football players. Like it's across the board. Like everyone, at some point in time, we got to let go. You know what I mean? Right. So, So the biggest thing I see with runners is not just changing the modality and reducing the amount of actual running or endurance that they're doing and getting more into strength training, but it's really about mobility and movement and fixing, because years of running and not doing much else, your body is great at running. There's a lot of stuff it's not good at.
Yes.
Right. So there's shoulder issues, you got hip issues, knee issues, ankle issues. I mean, there's so many things, range of motion in the rest of your body. There's the activation of other muscles you probably haven't used in 10, 15 years because you haven't ever needed to. And when you're running, so there's a lot of things that comes to play when we talk about longevity and we'll just bring it down again. Principles, right? Principles and concepts. We'll bring it down to the 7 essential movements. Okay. When you're running, you're great at the lunge. That's one of the 7 essential movements. That's essentially walking, right? Walking and lunging are the two movements in the 7 essential movements. That leaves 5 out. That leaves pushing, pulling, squatting, hinging, twisting. Right? You don't do any of those when you're running. So those are 5 basic essential movements you need to start working on. And in order to do that, that creates a whole litany of things that opens up a world of possibilities from new goals, new benchmarks, new things that you can start gauging your improvement and it doesn't have to be running. So that's one of the things a lot of people, I think, with running, with any sport, again, power lifters, CrossFitters, whatever. Well, if I give this up, how am I going to know if I'm getting better? What do I have to benchmark? What do I have to achieve? There's a whole, when you add that other stuff in, there's a whole another world that opens up to you.
It's so true. I mean, I literally would never do under an hour run. It's like wasted time, lame. An hour or hour and a half run during the week. And then my long run was 2 to 3 hours. Bike riding, at least an hour and a half weekdays, and go for, 4 to 7 hours on a Saturday when I was training for Ironmans. And it's so funny nowadays, like, okay, 45 minutes is okay. Now, like, okay, 30 minutes is good.
Yeah, right.
Today I think I did an hour, but the first part and last part were walking on the beach collecting sand dollars. And I went and did some 30-second sprints on the Torrey Pines Hill, and I did 30 seconds to minute intervals and worked on my strength. So it's so funny how you have to switch your mindset. And I find, my new me versus my old me, it's like, all right, this is fun, and find, as you say, new things to do, and be okay with it. Give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, I went through that transition. For me, it was when I got out of the Army. The Army ruined me for running.
Oh.
Absolutely ruined me for running. Like the running in the Army is such a pain in the ass.
Then you have to chant too. Hoorah, hoorah.
I mean, all of the stuff, but it's forced running. It's nothing anyone ever wants to do. You have to do it at their pace. You have to do it with people that like if someone's lagging behind, everybody's got to keep going so that person catches up. Like there's just so many aspects to the way the Army does fitness, or has done fitness in the past 20 years ago, that just ruined me for running. Out of the Army, I was like, I am not running ever again. It's never happening again. And obviously that's not true, right? So I got into fitness and was like, well, crap, now I got to start running. So when I first got back into fitness and started running, I still hated it. This is ridiculous. I'm dying out here. I can never go as fast as I want, like blah, blah, blah. And then I'll remember this super, super vividly. I remember one day I was running. I was so pissed off that I was running. Why am I doing this? This is BS. I hate this. And then I just stopped and started walking because I was just fed up with the whole thing. And it just came across me. It just hit me. You're not in the Army anymore. You don't have to do this. And I was like, crap. I've been trying to run this whole time like I'm still in the Army. I'm still trying to run this pace. I'm still trying to run this fast. I'm still trying to run this far. There's this picture that I had in my head of what I was supposed to do when I ran. And it just dawned on me in that instant that I didn't have to do it that way anymore. I could do it how I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And from that point on, it was like, you know what? I'm going to run for 5 minutes and go back in. I don't care. You know what I mean? But then it got to the point where I could run couple miles. I could do a 5K, and I still have no desire to run more than a 5K because I don't need to in my life. It's not part anywhere in my life goals. But the fact that it changed how I enjoyed the process and how I and how I perceived the process of running a million times over when I realized I could do it on my terms.
Yeah.
So if someone has an expectation that they have to keep doing it a certain way, you can do it however way you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can change that.
Well, I think it is letting go. It's my thing from yoga. I learned let go. Right. That I used to be good, strong athlete. And I had a really long time. I struggled because I couldn't do a 3:12 marathon pace. And my half marathon was a 1:35 time, was my best time. And I would always race, and I would never do a marathon. And like slowest time was 3:45 or something time wise. And so now the last few years I've struggled with my times running, and I had to get over, just be happy. I can run. My knees work, my feet work. I'm outside in nature and fresh air doing what makes me happy, and get over what pace that is and just let go of that. And I'm still don't believe that I'll never be able to be fast again. I don't want to use age as an excuse, but I just feel like you have to get rid of that. Oh, I used to do this. I used to that. I have these high expectations of myself that you have to let go of that sometimes and just find the new you.
Find the new you, and nothing lasts forever. And you can never, it's impossible to always be at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So you just find something else to be at the top of.
Yeah. That's why I think I always have to keep growing and learning and becoming a new person. Journey.
Just so we go through that phase, you go through that season. I'm great at running. This is the things that I've been able to do. Okay, that's great. What's the next thing that I want to get good at?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's mobility. Maybe it's calisthenics. Maybe it's strength training. Maybe it's learning how to do freaking aerobics or something, or acrobatics or something, right? Maybe I want to go learn how to do trapeze.
Yeah.
There's so many things
Pole
that
dancing.
because you're physically able, the door is open for you to experiment. You don't have to pigeon. Why are we humans so keen on building an entire identity around one activity and then never wanting to let go?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how
let go of it.
So many of us, I'm sure my listeners are a lot like me, that I was asked every single day for so many years, when's your next race? And I wouldn't visit someone unless there was a race in town. Oh, well, there's a marathon. Do you want to come that weekend? And because I'm like, oh my God, that's the only thing people think I do. And I realized, oh, that is my life. So, until we moved, it was your whole life revolves around that because you do it for 10, 20 years. So you don't know any different. That's just how you roll. And when people ask you only to do stuff because of a race, or ask you when your next race is, you realize that, okay, there's more to life than racing. If that's all people think I do, that's kind of sad. Yeah. So anyways, let's talk about, if we talked a little bit about fasting. A lot of people are getting confused to do, these 24-hour, 48, 72-hour fasts as athletes.
Overrated.
12 to 16-hour fasts. What?
Overrated.
Yeah, overrated is your answer.
Overrated. Fasting is severely
because
overrated.
You get athletes are exercising and get cell autophagy. And
every benefit that you get from fasting, you get from exercise. So if you're exercising, if you're also strength training, there's got to be some strength training in there if you want to get the full range. Okay. Because then we talk about mitochondrial density. We talk about mitochondrial, just the number of mitochondria, things like that. So we talk about mitophagy. We talk about cytokines and how that plays into BDNF. And we talk about BDNF and brain function. And there's a bunch of other things. So the combination of, and this is where we talk about functional fitness now, right? We're talking about building your body's ability to do a lot of things well.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to be able to sprint. You need to be able to run for long distances. You need to be able to carry light load for long periods of time. You need to be able to carry or move heavy loads for short periods of time. So there's a broad range of things that we need to be able to do. And if you're only training one or two of them, you're missing out on half of your life. So, and we're talking about quality of life and longevity. So you need those 7 essential movements. You also need the 10 components of fitness, right? We need to be able to build strength and endurance and agility and coordination and balance and speed and power and accuracy of movement. We need all those things. So you can't get that just doing strength training. You can't get that just doing endurance training. You need all of it.
Yeah. And I think when people, because I did this too, because I got into fasting and eating just the fat all day and not enough protein, that I was probably not eating barely enough calories for my activity load, because I was training clients. I was moving all day, owned my fitness studio back then. And then I started doing one meal a day without knowing it, because I'd get home and it'd be 3:00. Oh, I better eat. And I hadn't eaten really all day, but fat coffee, then I had one meal. And then I learned later that became trendy, 1 meal a day, OMAD. And I was thinking over the years, how's that good for people that are exercising as much as I am? My thyroid, everything's low, my hormones. So I'm trying to share that on the show. It's not for us.
It's not. It's not for anybody. The only people that should be fasting are people that have 300 pounds to lose, right? If you are severely obese and you have a ton of fat that your body can siphon off that fuel, then go for it. Have a blast. Fast your butt off. Now, you should be exercising while you're doing it, because if you just lose all the weight and don't have any function, that's the whole different discussion, right? That's just a waste of time. But as far as athletes go, you need protein. I hate talking about food as fuel because it's so much more than fuel, right? But if we're going to use that picture, we're going to draw the picture of fuel. Protein is your fuel for recovery.
Yep.
So if we need to stop thinking about fuel that we burn and start thinking about food that we use. And if we need to exercise and recover, then protein is what lets that happen. So you are not fuel. If you are not getting enough protein, you're not fueling your body properly. If we want to look at it from that perspective, I hate
and then
looking
you
at
do
it
a
from a food
fast.
perspective, but that's what it is.
But that's what people are doing, fasting on their rest days. Like, wait, that's when you need to have the protein.
That's when you need your protein the most.
I don't know where you can do fasting. It doesn't fit in your schedule.
Yeah. This is one of the things that that really drives me crazy is people that are like, well, I eat more on my workout days. I eat less on my days off. Days off is when you should be eating the most. That's when your body's rebuilding. Yeah. Right? So, yeah,
Well, I say at least get bone broth.
Eat what you need to eat.
Have like 6 cups of bone broth and put some oil in it, some ghee or some MCT or lots of butter. But you got to have food, maybe on a liquid day if you have some gut issues. But that's
if you're doing gaps or something like that, if you're trying to do an elimination thing, but not as a long-term recurring ongoing thing. Sure.
That's funny because I learned about the GAPS diet from my sister-in-law about 15 years ago. And then you realize, that was kind of carnivore healing diet. It was liquid. 100%. It was organ meat and bone broth.
Absolutely.
And meat. And it's so funny.
Wow,
I just realized that the other day, the GAPS diet. Oh, look at that. So other things I think on our list, training, we talked about doing all sorts of training, fueling, endurance. What are some other things that you think people, after being on the conference cruise, it just is what people are missing? Like I talked about chronic stress. If you're trying everything, but you're stressed out all day, living life as a race.
Well, I actually want to talk to you about that because I have a concept for a book that I want to write that's all about stress.
I've got a few key books on it.
A few thoughts on stress. No, because I can't this, and I think stress is a big one. I think people don't understand stress enough. Life is stress, and that's what I want to title the book. Everything we do is preparing for stress, dealing with stress, or recovering from stress.
Yeah.
Every function in our body, every action we take in life, like everything we do is stress. Whether it's a stressor, it causes stress, or it's a stimulus of some sort. So I think understand that, I think, is a huge aspect of just the overall puzzle for people. And explaining the concept of allostatic load and chronic stress and acute stress and hormetic stress and eustress and de-stress and all the different stresses, right? They should get a shirt that has all the stresses on it. Like, do you know what these are? Do you know where your stress is? That kind of thing. But I think understanding that fitness and nutrition are the keys for helping you manage internal and external stress. And if you neglect either one of them, you will be ill prepared for the stresses that life puts on you. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. People think that there's some aesthetic reason or some societal reason they need to eat well or they need to do exercise or whatever. So they have some picture or perception on the head on why they should, I hate that word doesn't work, why they should do this. And what they're not realizing is
they read it somewhere, heard it somewhere.
They read it somewhere. Someone told them, their doctor said, whatever. Nutrition removes and helps your body manage internal stress. So that if you do get something into your body, and this isn't just food, the better your nutrition, the better your immune system. The better your nutrition, the lower your inflammation. So when we talk about inflammation, now I like to use the analogy of first aid responders. The more bad crap you put into your body, the more you make your first responders in your body have to work. And then when something really bad does happen to your body, they're taxed out. They don't got any more room. Guess what? You're in the hospital.
Yep.
Because you got nothing left. Yep. You've been eating crap. Your body's inflamed. You got all these other things going on. Something bad happens, you're screwed. Right? So the better you can eat, the better your body can manage everything it needs to manage. And if something bad happens, you're in a much better position. Okay? On the fitness side of things, training is your opportunity to prepare in a controlled environment for the external and physical stresses that life is going to put you in an uncontrolled environment. So that is your opportunity to be ready for anything And if you don't take that opportunity, you won't be ready for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
But less is more, not more is not better.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's a whole other
The
discussion.
Goldilocks effect. Yeah. So much. So true. So I got to wrap up, but I know you were I was watching the first episode of the Reversed show. In 1 minute, did you get it? What do you biggest takeaway from that experience?
Oh my gosh. My biggest takeaway from the Reverse Carnivore season is don't eat crap, eat more meat. And it doesn't matter what person you listen to or what their message is. When you boil it down to the principles and the concepts of what they're talking about, that's what we're all saying.
Yeah.
Don't eat crap, eat more meat. And that's really the answer. If you just go with that, things will be a lot better.
But then you go listen to the doctors and they'll tell you opposite.
Well, but even the doctors, right? We had Dr. Ovadia.
Not those doctors, people's normal doctors.
Regular doctors. Oh, ignore your regular doctors. I didn't say that. Help disclaimer.
Yeah, don't listen to Coach Bronson. But that's the thing is that my next client, he's blood pressure. I can't have sodium. I can't do all that saturated fat on this, high fat meat diet. And then as he goes to the doctors, they're paying these high-end concierge doctors, and they're just paying a lot of money, and they listen to what they say. I'm like, here's Dr. Ken Berry's video. Listen to him.
Yep. Even, there's so much information out there at this point. Just show them the Harvard study, right? 2,000 people on the carnivore diet, over 90% of them reduced diabetes medication, hypertension medication. All of them lost weight. Most of them gained muscle. Like a complete and just 180 turnarounds in metabolic issues.
Yeah.
Right. And it's documented.
You don't need statin drugs usually.
Oh my God. Statins are the worst. Statins are the worst.
I know I need a whole episode on cholesterol. I'll get Eric, Dr. Westman.
Get Dave on.
I know. Dave, I asked him I need to do an episode with him too.
Yeah.
On cholesterol. It drives me nuts. Everybody has that same conversation. Like, nah, why do we still talk about this? So
exactly.
Anyways, where can people find you?
People can find me at coach.bronson on Instagram, on YouTube, and my website is coachbronson.com. And if you want to get my book, I really want everyone to get a hold of my book. It's Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness.
On Amazon?
It's on Amazon, the complete guide to keto. And it's not just keto. It's, again, like I said, philosophies and concepts of how this stuff works and how you can implement it in your life.
I have it somewhere on my shelf here. It is a great book. There, it says, show it on the screen.
I got one. Oh.
Yeah, you have one. It's, because you're so positive and you're really good at analogies and you're good at making it simple. So I think that's so appealing to people that are new to fitness too, and how to make it approachable. That is that intimidating CrossFit type of workout. Is here's what to do and get started.
You don't got to start there, but you can end there for sure. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
I don't know. I'm still working at it. So thanks so much for your time today. And we'll look on YouTube channel. Is that your main place or Instagram?
Instagram. And I have a group on Facebook as well, but mostly probably Instagram, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
I got to just pick one.
Yeah. Right.
Less is more in my mantra. For people that get chronic stress issues, less is more.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.
Hey, before you leave, my fellow endurance athletes, just a reminder, if you like what you listened to today, please help me out. Share this episode with your community of fellow aging athletes. Also, you can head to debbiepotts.net to set up a free discovery call with me to learn about my personalized coaching programs. If you are struggling to get the desired results, even though you're doing all the so-called right things you hear about out there in our community, you may just need to adjust your workout and test and not guess with functional lab testing, nutritional therapy assessment, and get a personalized program to learn how to best fuel, train, and perform for the unique you to improve the aging process and work on training your future self now. So head to debbiepotts.net and let's talk more. Don't forget to support the podcast by sharing this episode with your fellow athletes, your training partners. that might be interested in learning more about how to fuel, train, and perform their best as an endurance athlete and aging athlete. And also check out Paleo Valley, as they have so many great products that are ready to go as their beef sticks and their vitamin C and organ capsules and all these nutritional therapy type of supplements that are great in the fall and winter season. You may want to have a little bit more to improve your immune system. So let's check out paleovalley.com. Use our code lowcarbathlete to save on your favorite products. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.